All right. Hey everyone, welcome to another video. We're looking at week four. Yeah, week four of VBL, uh, season 12. And we don't have a live commentary this time, unfortunately. I was out of the house when I played against Poppin this week, so we're stuck with a post-game analysis of our match. But yeah, we're just gonna do what I kind of did a couple weeks ago, where we kind of go over some of my pre-game thoughts and then analyze the match itself and what I was thinking as we went through it. Let's get right into it. Looking at the team that Poppin brought, he obviously has the very scary combo of Tatsu Dozo, which is always just a pain to deal with. And if you look at my team, you may notice that I don't have any haze users or any clear smog users. So that's an immediate problem for me in terms of getting rid of some of those stat boosts that Dozo is going to get. He also has Glamora, which can be a really annoying special attacker, while it also sets up toxic spikes if it gets hit with physical attacks. He also has Wo Qian, which can lower my attack stat of all my physical attackers, and also just be really annoying with Leech Seed and stuff like that. So that was definitely something I had to plan around, especially with Garchomp being a huge part of my game plan in most weeks. So that's something I had to kind of play around. Other things just to note, he has a really good Trick Room mode with Cresselia. A lot of mons can really work well with that, like Camerupt, the Dondozo, like mentioned before, and Wo-Chien itself, as well as the Malamar. Uh, Other things I was kind of worried about, Pheasantipity, obviously pretty bulky on the special side and can be annoying with Toxic Chain and stuff like that. So definitely wanted to be looking out for that since it also could be a Tailwind setter. But overall, I was looking at his team and was noticing that Tatsudos would probably be my biggest problem. So I spent most of my energy in planning around that specific strategy. So with that being said, let's go ahead and look at my team pace for this week. And you may notice I have some very interesting sets. First and foremost, Meowstic. And we have more of an offensive set this week, although the stat spread may not suggest that. We have a max HP, max defense, bold nature Meowstic with Mirror. And the idea of this set was to lure the Dondozo in, set up whatever Reflect or Sunny Day support moves that I wanted with it, while he tried to get his stat boost with Tatudozo. And the idea was that I mirror herb whatever he gets with those stat boosts, and then the following turn skill swap him if he has something like Unaware or Oblivious, so that I can remove his ability to take less damage while also making him hit me for less. So that was the idea with that. And then for an attacking move, I had Stored Power, which comes very strong in terms of base power with +2 in every single stat. And I didn't really need to run much special attack investment just because of the sheer power that you get from Stored Power when it's boosted up that high. So that was the idea behind this set. Use Meowstic in a more offensive way. Other things to look at, Flutterbane, just raw damage. Choice Specs, Terragrass, hopefully able to take a little bit more from that Dozo if I Terragrass, and also just deal as much damage in return as possible with things like Moonblast, Psyshock for the Glamora, and Energy Ball for the Dozo if it didn't Terra. The other way I was planning on dealing with Tatsudozo was Ampharos and Garchomp this week. I had a Dragon Cheer Ampharos with a few support attacks like Electro Web and Dazzling Gleam, and then Thunderbolt just for stab. The idea was to set up Garchomp with the Dragon Cheer to make it just ignore all the stat boosts that Dozo got. Garchomp this week was special. Running through the calcs, Draco Meteor was doing a lot more than Dragon Claw was, or any physical move that I could choose. And with a crit guarantee, it theoretically could just wipe through his entire strategy with Tatsudozo. So it was Terra Bug with Terra Blast to deal with the Wo-Chien if it came to that. Earth Power was just really, really solid to deal with all his ground weaknesses. And it also prevented him from getting any toxic spike setup from Glamora because I was hitting with special moves from this side. But yeah, that was the idea behind this set. Ran just enough speed to kind of outspeed some of the moderately invested mid tiers that he had, while the rest of it was put into defense and special attack. Last two mons were Furret with a Focus Sash and Frisk, just to kind of scout items and get follow me support. Um, knock off in case he had like an ability shield or something on Dozo, which would prevent me from switching his ability if it came to that. And then Chestnut, just a really standard body press set with Leech Seed, just so I could kind of be annoying like the Wo-Chien. Yeah, that's the team that I came up for this week, and we're gonna go through the matches that we played earlier. Let's go ahead and turn the speed down to slow and play sound off. So yeah, Poppin ends or starts off game one by leading with his two poison types, Glamora and Pheasantipity, and I immediately see that he has Power Herb and Choice Scarf. So I know that Pheasantipity can't possibly protect this turn, so I can just remove it from the field if I want. I also know that Furret will be able to prevent the Flutter Mane from taking too much damage just using Follow Me, and that if he wants to use Meteor Beam, it's just going to be redirected into the Furret. So that's pretty much what I go for, and then I just click Psyshock to get rid of the Pheasantipity, since I don't want to get Toxic Chained by anything if I can't help it. So he ends up going for Icy Wind after I click Follow Me, and I fortunately don't get poisoned. But I do drop my speed, which is annoying. And then he ends up clicking Meteor Beam to the Furret, and that is goodbye Furret. But at this point, he's kind of just done his job scouting out for me a little bit and preventing the Flutter Mane from taking too much damage. And Specs Flutter Mane just easily takes care of that Pheasantipity. So at this point, I am pretty confident that my Garchomp should be able to outspeed both of these Mons. Garchomp, I specifically invested enough speed to outspeed a Tatsugiri if it wasn't like Choice Scarfed, and I know it's not Choice Scarf since Pheasantipity was running the Choice Scarf, and it should outspeed most Glamora sets while taking it out with Earth Power. But I kind of wanted to scout out what he's going to do this turn, so I ended up switching out the Flutter and putting in the Ampharos in order to kind of set up a Dragon Cheer strategy if that's what he chose to do. So I protect the Garchomp, he protects the Tatsu, and then he ends up just clicking Dazzling Gleam, which does decent damage in Ampharos, but I protect my Garchomp. So then he switches right into Dondozo, gets all his stat boosts, and I'm in a position where I'm like, okay, I can prepare to just get Dragon Cheer set up. I can Terra to prevent any massive damage coming in from like a Dragon move for the Tatsu if it wants to do that, or Dazzling Gleam from the Glamora. So I just Terra Bug, just kind of negate all that type of stuff. And he sent in Dozo. I click Earth Power. It does minimal damage at 21. I put out Electrowebs. Does minimal damage again, but does drop his speed. And I don't see any suggestions of like Covert Cloak or leftovers on the Dozo. So at this point, I'm trying to just kind of scout out what he wants to do. So I protect the Garchomp while clicking Dragon Cheer into it from the Ampharos just to get set up and see what he wants to do. So he ends up clicking Protect as well. So I just kind of get Dragon Cheer up for free. And at this point, I'm like, okay, this is great. Garchomp should be able to eat a hit or outspeed the Dozo and just take it out with a Draco Meteor. Unfortunately, that's not how this next turn goes, and I lose my Garchomp pretty much immediately. He Terra Fairies, very well prepared by him, and I get no damage off this turn with the Garchomp, and he ends up getting a crit with a special set on the Dondozo, which I thought was really, really cool. Ampharos just barely lives that hit and manages to get a Thunderbolt off. But at this point, I am pretty worried because I don't know if Fluttermane's going to be able to kill, and he might just be able to take me out this game with a very strong special attacking Dondozo. But Moonblast does end up taking it out, and I get a free Thunderbolt into the Tatsu. So that worked out pretty well for me at this point. So I don't know if it's Sash at this point, since Furt wasn't able to frisk it. So getting that damage off of it with Thunderbolt was definitely very useful because I just didn't know what it had. So he sends in Glamora, and at this point, I'm not too sure how this game's going to end up playing out because I'm locked into Moonblast, which Glamora resists, and Ampharos I don't see getting much out of this turn just because it's so slow. So I end up just attacking the Glamora just to see what he wants to do, and then just click, I believe, Electro Webs, just try to reduce the speed and spread some damage out amongst both Pokemon. He just protects the Tatsu at this point and does end up trying to get some damage off onto the Ampharos, which I'm perfectly fine with. It gets out and I get good damage onto the Glamora, which at this point I was like, okay, that did 51%. I'm feeling pretty good about this end game with Flutter, since it should be able to just kind of clean sweep if I play it right. So yeah, it's at a good spot. The Glamora does protect, and I kind of read that it would do that, so I just kind of put damage into the Tatsugiri, which, even with the Roselli Berry, does not have a chance of winning a Specs Moonblast. And game one ends pretty smoothly for me, just with Flutter taking care of the rest. Glamora does eat that hit on that last bit, but I do get the special track drop just so it prevents me from taking any more significant damage. So yeah, game one, definitely a lot of ups and downs, but definitely happy with overall how I played. And I felt pretty good with the information game going into game two. All right, game two, we'll put it back on slow. So this time I was like, okay, let's try the Meowstic strategy, and I lead with it. He leads with Dozo and Pheasantipity, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. I got my strategy, which he doesn't know about yet, with the Meowstic on the board if I want it, and I'm just gonna try showing setup moves on the Meowstic while he does whatever he wants with the Dozo. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I know that this is scarfed. I can just hit it with another Psyshock while setting up Reflect on the Meowstic. And yep, honestly, Reflect doesn't do too much for me this game since it's a special Dozo. But I know that if he does send in Tatsu, I'll be taking less damage from it since I get the special defense boost by copying his stats, and I feel pretty good about that. So he does immediately go into Tatsu and decides to protect on the Dozo, which I found just fine. It gives me a free setup move on the Meowstic while getting all the stat boosts. So I get a free Reflect up. Flutter ends up missing into the Tatsugiri, which is fine. But I'm in a really good spot right now. I feel really comfortable, and I'm in a position where I can kind of scout out to see what ability he has on the Dozo. So I send in Ampharos just so I can get a little bit of pressure on him with electric type moves and kind of scout out what he wants to do. And at this point, I know he's not Terra Dark since he Terra Fairy last game, so stored power should be pretty free against him. So I'm just kind of taking it slow, seeing what he wants to do. But I know that Meowstic is pretty much in a really strong spot at this point in the game. So I skill swap it. He has Oblivious instead of Unaware, so I do end up taking a decent amount of damage on the Meowstic, but not too much. And I get a really, really solid position at this point where I can just use Meowstic the way I wanted to originally. So I Terra Water on the Meowstic to take less damage from the Surf. I think I kind of burned my Terra a little bit too early this game. I could have definitely used it a little bit later in the game, but c'est la vie. I do take way less damage from his Surfs, which is fine by me. And Stored Power does massive damage, 74, and that's just at non-invested special attack, just +2 Stored Power, doing 78% or 74% to his Dozo. So really, really big damage. Really happy with how that went. He clicks Surf. Meowstic takes minimal damage. Ampharos almost dies, but he's able to finish it off with this Thunderbolt. At this point, I'm sitting really, really pretty this game. Unfortunately, I do see the Wo Qian come in at this point, and I'm like, okay, well, this thing pretty much walls Meowstic, but at this point, I've taken away his main threat of offense, and I can kind of just ignore it for now. I know he's probably just going to set up Leech Seed and stuff like that. I just want to take out the rest of his Pokemon as fast as possible. So I just kind of target everything besides that. Stored Power is an easy OHKO on a Tatsugiri. He sets up Leech Seed on me, so it puts me on a timer and gives him some recovery. And Dazzling Gleam, as you can see, is not doing that much damage to the Wo Qian. It's already back up to full, basically. But I'm feeling pretty good. Meowstic can just do whatever it wants. Click the moves into the Pheasantipity since it can't protect with the Choice Scarf. and I'm just kind of leaving the Wo-Chien be by itself over there. So we take care of the Pheasantipity, one hit KO, perfect. And he sets up another Leech Seed onto my Ampharos, and I just click Dazzling Gleam again, Dazzling Gleam, just to get some more chip. But at this point, I'm like, it's pretty much just a stall fest to see if he can outstall me. But with 3 Pokemon against 1, I'm feeling pretty good about my odds, even though I know that I can't really hit it with its dark typing. I'm pretty confident the rest of my Pokemon can take care of it. So at this point, I was kind of like, I kind of wish I saved my Terra on Meowstic and used it on my Garchomp so I could use Terra Blast Bug and hit this Wo-Chien for a lot of damage. But it was kind of too late to really worry about it at this point. I knew that Flutter Mane could do a lot of damage against it with Specs Moonblast, and I figured he'd probably just keep trying to set up Leech Seed and stuff like that. So this is where the back half of the Meowstic strategy comes in a lot handy. He protects on the Wo-Chien, and I just set up Sunny Day to really boost out my Flutter Mane's special attack stat. So this thing's doing a ton of damage at this point. He does protect, and at this point, I'm like, I can't really do much with the Meowstic. I'm just giving a free recovery. Maybe I just switch into Garchomp so I can just kind of get it in for free and see what he wants to do at this point. So I switch it out, and he ends up actually tearing into the fire type into the Wo-Chien, which means I could have just stayed in and potentially clicked a very strong stored power against it and probably taken care of it from there. But very well played with that. He kind of pretty much figured that I would have to switch at that point and just chose to Terra then, uh, which worked out really well for him and just stalling out a few more turns in hopes of potentially winning the game. But at this point, I see Terra Fire. Moonblast is still doing 29%, and I know my Garchomp is going to be just fine with Earth Power at this point, since now that's super effective. So it kind of worked out for me in the long run, but he does end up being able to stall a few more turns. You can get Leech Seed up if he wants, but at this point, the game's pretty much sealed. Garchomp's doing super effective damage. He can't deal too much of it in return, and I can just keep switching to prevent him from recovering too much damage. So yeah, sets Leech Seed against the Garchomp. Gets back up to like 62. But once again, Garchomp showing itself to be a really, really good pickup for me. It does get a crit right there, but I am Scope Lens, so I do have a higher crit rate. And I think overall, I'm just going to be out damaging him more than he could really heal. So it kind of just ended what would have been an inevitable longer stall out if it had been any other situation. So yeah, Garchomp takes care of the last kill, and I won this at 2-0. So super, super happy with Meowstic. It's been putting in a ton of work for me this season. It's just such a versatile mon, so many things it can do, and I'm really enjoying exploring like the different ways that I can use it. And yeah, really, really happy with how that went. So yeah, overall, really, really pleased with how the match went. Sad that I couldn't have reacted to it live. But it is what it is. Just really happy to be pulling away with the win and moving on to 3-1 at about the halfway mark of the season. So, yeah, hoping to be able to record a live commentary next time for week 5. But yeah, very well played by Poppin. Really, really scary team, and definitely had some really cool techs that I had to watch out for. Good luck to him in future seasons and future games in the season. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.